I didn't have high expectations for Predator Badlands. Predator films have just never lived up to the 1987 original, and not for lack of trying. Predator has to be one of the most revisited and rebooted franchises around. And with Disney pulling the strings, and a film set on inverting the normal Predator dynamic, taking up the perspective of the Predator itself and humanizing the ultimate killing machine, the stars were aligning for this movie to disappoint. The movie even has the word bad in the title, so coming up with a dad joke title for this video wasn't even going to be that hard. And seeing some of the buzz about this movie before watching it myself, it looked like the stars did align, and we had another Predator bust on our hands. Oops, phrasing. But truth be told, I don't think this is a bad movie. I understand some of the points of complaint that people have brought up. Predator Badlands is very light on plot, some of the effects had some jank, there's no deep character exploration, and the PG-13 label might hold it back in a few scenes. But for the most part, Predator Badlands exceeded my admittedly low expectations. It's action-packed, it has some gripping visuals, and the sound design was tremendous from top to bottom. And I'll talk more about the film and about some of the criticisms I've seen levied its way after we get in a recap of the film's story. So stand still. I think there are spoilers in the trees above us. We begin on Yautja Prime, the home planet of the Predators. The warrior alien kind, not the Epstein and the Andrew formerly known as Prince kind. We'll call them by their technical name Yautja from now on to avoid confusion. Here we meet Dek, the runt of a prestigious clan who's looking to impress his warrior father with a coming-of-age hunt. But his dad has already decided he's too weak, and he's tasked Dek's brother with culling him. When Dek's brother refuses though, he takes up his blade against their father and loses his life while helping Dek escape off-planet. In search of a Kalisk, the most vicious creature in the universe, Dek intends to bring one back and prove his father wrong, and then to get revenge for his brother. So Dek crash lands on planet Australia, where everything is trying to kill him. He's immediately hunted by the trees, the fauna, and the flora, but he eventually meets half of a synth called Thea. She agrees to lead Dek to the beast's lair in exchange for him bringing her to her missing legs, and Dek begrudgingly accepts her help. When they arrive, Thea betrays Dek and alerts the rest of her Weyland-Yutani research team that's also looking to capture the Kalisk. When the Kalisk shows up first, Dek puts up a tough fight and is able to behead the Kalisk, only for the creature to fuse its head back on. But then the other synths show up, and Thea's twin synth, Tessa, is able to capture both Dek and the Kalisk. While in captivity, Thea comes around and helps Dek escape. Dek refuses to give up the hunt, and he outfits himself with a lethal kit made up of materials and creatures from the planet. He tracks the Weyland-Yutani crew to their base and slaughters his way through their army of synths, freeing Thea and the Kalisk along the way. Tessa comes stomping out in a mech suit to finish Dek off, but the Kalisk gets to her first, and she gets eaten. Dek and Thea are victorious, and Dek bonds with the Kalisk in a sign of mutual respect, just before Tessa blows up the creature from inside. Tessa moves to finish off Thea, but Dek blows a knife blade through the back of her neck and saves Thea. Dek has tamed the beast, proven himself, and found a new clan. But there's still one more thing to do. Dek returns home and presents Tessa's skull to his father as a trophy of his hunt. But Daddy still thinks he's weak, so he orders his guards to kill Dek. Dek dispatches them in short order and then goes toe-to-toe with his dad, cutting off his arm and capturing him. Dad realizes that his son is indeed strong enough and offers him a place in the clan once more. An offer which Dek repays by having a Kalisk bite off his dad's head, as Dek avenges his brother's honorable death. And that's the end. For several seconds, until we get one final scene of Dek's mother approaching in a ship, and then the movie ends. So yeah, as you can tell, Predator Badlands is pretty light on plot. It boils down to one Yautja's quest to prove himself in his father's eyes, and him finding a new clan after being cut out of his own. It's nothing to write home about, to be sure. But I think the entire history of Predator movies has taught us that the story is always pretty bare bones. It's always been the character work, the fight for survival, and the action that those bones hold up, which makes the movies what they are, for better or for worse. I prioritize good storytelling over everything, and a movie with a weak story, in my mind, has its ceiling capped. I think of it like this: if you're grading a movie on a scale of 10, at least 6 of those points are reserved for the story. So even if a movie nails everything else, but its story gets a 1, that movie can never be higher than a 5. And Predator Badlands is no exception. Its simple, linear story and minimal character development undoubtedly hold it back. But when comparing it to movies past, I just don't think Predator, across the board, is the franchise to hold up as a beacon of storytelling. There are some contrivances to be found in Badlands though, for sure. Like Deck taking no real damage when crash landing in an ejector seat after falling from the atmosphere, or his ship working fine after it crash landed on the planet, or Thea being able to betray her programming without any explanation other than her being a quirky synth. One thing that I appreciated about Badlands' story was that the stakes were introduced right away. I'm a sucker for anything with daddy issues, and the brother-daddy drama early on got me somewhat invested in this movie right out of the gate. Movies these days have this pervasive disease where it takes 30 minutes for things to really start moving, like a morning turd. They spend so much time setting the stage before even introducing the stakes and showing us why we should care about the story. Badlands didn't piss away its first 30 minutes, and the movie's better for it. There was plenty of action from beginning to end, and a lot of it was visceral and brutal. That being said, you do lose something when there's no human element, and there's not a single human in the movie. The action is still fun, but it can reach a point where seeing the 27th robot and the 5th creature getting ripped apart doesn't elicit much feeling. There were some hiccups, but I think the visuals were mostly satisfying too. All of the beasts and the killer plant life on the alien planet was really cool. The Yautja's gear looks a little plasticky, but what his arsenal lacks in sheen, it makes up for in lethal diversity. And on a quick note, I liked the ancient Sith vibe the Yautja had going on in the beginning. They were wearing black cloaks and menacing masks while dueling with red laser swords. So I appreciated the brief spectacle those scenes provided. The setting was fun. Everything on this planet is trying to kill you, even the razor blade grass. And probably the best aspect of the film for me was the sound design. The sound effects were just cool, from the Yautja's language to their voice modifications, even the subtle glitching voice modulation on the synths. And the music was absolutely perfect a lot of the time. Top to bottom, this movie sounded great, and it did nothing but enhance everything on screen, even the lower points. But let's talk about the criticisms I've seen for Predator Badlands. First up, I've seen complaints about the main character Deck being a weak, scrawny, castrated male. First of all, he's only scrawny for his species. And he's only weak when put up against his family, the strongest hunters of his race, the most formidable hunters in the galaxy. Put up against everything else in this movie, he sure doesn't feel weak. He's slaughtering his way through most things that get in his path. Secondly, he grows over the course of his journey? That's the entire point. He becomes stronger, physically and emotionally, and he hones his skill on the most dangerous prey he can find. He learns ways to make up for his weaknesses. He becomes someone worthy of his father's respect, as confirmed by his father later on. I'll grant you that Deck's growth just kind of happens, and the movie doesn't do a good job of highlighting it as it's happening, but he definitely grows. That's his whole journey. That's the entire point of the story, so I don't really get this criticism. Next up, people were turned off by the annoying characters, probably by Thea, who talks the Yautja's earhole off for most of the movie. But this is a personal taste thing. If she annoys you, then it'll be a consistent problem throughout the movie. But I never felt any great annoyance, to be honest. Then people think the movie is light on plot. I agree with this one, but I'd come back to what I was saying earlier. Pretty much every Predator movie is light on plot when you get down to it. Now, some of those movies, especially the original, made up for it in spades with character development or character exploration. If you want to say that Badlands was lacking in that regard, then I'm in agreement with you. Another issue people had was with over-humanizing the Yautja. I too had this concern, as I think the entire point of the Predator creature was to present something very inhuman. A killing machine that couldn't be reasoned with. And in Badlands, I do think they humanized Deck a bit too much, but it was to a lesser degree than I thought they would when I saw the first trailer. Some people are turned off by the attempts at humor. Again, that's a taste thing, and I think this movie's humor landed more often than it missed. It's nothing groundbreaking, and it's predictable, but it's not flat out bad. Lastly, people were dubious about the PG-13 rating, and they think the movie suffered for it, that it was Disney-fied. But the thing about that is that human blood is what will often bump a movie like this up to an R rating. And, well, there's not a single human to be found in this movie, and there's plenty of blood spilling out of the Yautja, out of other creatures, and there are fluids pouring out of the synths while they're being eviscerated. There are decapitations, arms being sliced off, and holes being blown through characters' throats. There's plenty of carnage to go around, and the PG-13 rating is misleading. Look, I have no interest in defending this movie, or the franchise, or anything Disney puts out. But I will come to the defense of the truth, and in truth, I think much of the criticism I've seen here is pretty weak. All told, I think Predator Badlands is formulaic and predictable. But I think it delivers where it should, providing plenty of visceral action with gripping visuals. And if you go in with those kind of expectations, Predator Badlands is a decent experience. As of this writing, Badlands is sitting at a 96% audience rating on Rotten Tomatoes, and is getting a more down-to-earth 5.5 on Metacritic. If we can set our expectations accordingly for what we should really expect from this movie, a visually satisfying action flick, then I think this movie can just squeak into Great Watch territory. But it's more just good than great. I'd give it about a 6.5. But if we're only allowed to stack it up against the original Predator movie, then of course it's going to fall well short of that. Prey, this director's other Predator film, is a much more fair comparison to make with Badlands. And though Prey is still the better movie, Predator Badlands would be much more competitive there, to give you an idea of where this one ranks in the Predator pantheon. And I don't think anything about the movie screams that you need to go pay to see it in theaters ASAP. If you have an interest in a simple action movie with the Predator veneer, just catch it when you can for cheap. What kind of expectations did you have for Predator Badlands? How much of the criticism do you think is warranted? Did you see it for yourself? Let us know in the comments below. And remember to like the video if you liked it, and subscribe to Hatewatchers for reviews of other current shows and movies. Thank you for visiting Planet Australia with me today, and I'll catch you on the next one.